ואלה המשפוטים אשר תוסם לפניהם, יש להם על הדרך תסחדש כנשר נערוכי, כי ידוע שבמצרים תיקנו והלו אויסה ניצוצה שנופלים ממי אדם הראשון. So, he's going to talk about Yetzias Mitzrayim, and the Arizal says that in Mitzrayim, Klal Yisrael was there in order to take out the Nitzotzes, to take out the truth, the Chochmah that Mitzrayim had inherited. And all this Chochmah is carried within the human souls, within the people. So when Klal Yisrael goes to Golus within a nation, they're picking up the information, they're understanding how that nation sees life. And then from there they can pick up the Nitzotzes, which is the portions of life that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had in mind that should be in the world, but they're stuck by the Goyim. So through Golus, through the Klal Yisrael going through the Golus, they get to remove those Nitzotzes. So Klal Yisrael, all of Klal Yisrael comes from the Neshama of Adam Rishon. Not only Klal Yisrael, but all of the nations. Everybody comes from Adam Rishon because Adam Rishon was the first man. So everybody is carrying his DNA in their blood. And whatever he did, or whatever he didn't do, or whatever he understood, or whatever he didn't understand, affects us today. It causes us to see life the way that we see it. Because Adam Rishon, when he became conscious originally, he didn't understand life the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had intended us to understand life. And that's why he could make such a big mistake so early on in his existence. And that's because when he started perceiving life and we started interacting with Chava, his conclusions about life were not completely accurate. And that caused a certain friction between him and reality that resulted in a lot of damage. And the damage happened over 130 years that he was separated from Chava, where according to the Arizal, all the Nitzotzes of the Nishmas Yisrael were born in that time when he was not with his wife. And the way that they were born, the process that they came to be in this world, the process that they gained existence was not pure, was not without evil, was not without misunderstanding. And therefore, it's our job until this very day to realize what Adam Rishon got wrong and see if we can get it right. And that's been the challenge for us through all the Goliaths. We go through the Goyim, we learn from the Goyim because everybody is manifesting life differently. But the tafkid of Klal Yisrael is to manifest life correctly. And in order to manifest life correctly, we need the proper information to do that, which we don't have. So we have our Mesoida, and we also have the things that we've learned through the Golas from the different nations. And all these things need to be mevurah. All these things are mevurah derech chochmah. When a person is conscious and he understands the purpose, he understands the goal, so then he's mevarer all these different nitzotzes, all the different information that he received from the nations, he can be mevarer that. But if a person doesn't have the proper chochmah, is not properly attached to his neshama, so then sometimes not only isn't there a bir, not only isn't going through the goal helping him, but sometimes the information that he receives is the opposite of what the goal was that he should receive, meaning he misunderstands it even worse. And that causes an even deeper goal, that causes an arichus hagolis, when a person, when Klal Yisrael buys into the premise that the goyim sell, but not the nitzitz of emes that's in that way of life, but the shkorim that's in that way of life. And when we buy into the shkorim, we become dominated by those shkorim. That even within our minds, we're giving koyach to the goyim. We're giving koyach to the sorim, to the malochim that are leading them, which is their way of perceiving life, which is their reality, their truth. V'yisa b'ksovim, she'adam rishon pegam shelo haya b'das. So Adam Rishon, when the pegam happened, it happened through das. So das, we spoke about before, das is the conscious part of a human being. So a human being is more than just his das. We experience the das, that's where we live. We live in the das, but we're much more than the das. The das is just like the window, where you can look in and see the person. Just like when you look at the body, you see the eyes, and you sort of feel like you're seeing the neshama in there. You're seeing somebody inside, even though all you're seeing is just the color of the eyes. But there's a lot of detail that the nefesh presents in the eyes that you sort of get a feel for who is inside of there. So even though you're seeing a physical manifestation, you're seeing just tissue, but you feel like you're seeing the person because the information that's represented in that tissue is real. It was written by the soul to express its feelings. So you can see a person's pain or a person's happiness. So you can see many things just by looking at his eyes, intrinsically so. The same thing, the das is your way of knowing yourself. So you are there, you're the neshama, you're something bigger, something extremely big, something you can't even imagine. And in order for you to know yourself, the das presents a window into your character, into your being, into your potential, and through that you have the ability to think. And that function, when it became conscious in Adam Harishon, it didn't work out properly just the way that it's supposed to. It will only work out properly when Mashiach comes. That's why the Zohar speaks about the Sheishes Mebereshis. The Zohar says that the pasuk doesn't say Ki b'sheishes yomim asa Hashem es hashamayim v'oretz. He made it in 6 days. The pasuk says Ki sheishes yomim asa Hashem es hashamayim v'oretz. He made 6 days, and that's because the 6 days that he made are the 6 midas, and from these 6 midas, by combining them in many different ways, we get this entire reality that we experience. So he created just 6 different elements, and the 7th, the Shabbos, which is koilel all of them, right? On the Malchus it says, Lesle migar mo klum, she has nothing of her own, but what does she have? She has the manifestation of all the 6 together in balance. And that's the ultimate goal of a human being. So the Zohar says that these 6,000 years that we're living in now, each day, in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is 1,000 years. So every 1,000 years represents a different day of the Sheishes Yemei Bereshis. And therefore now, when we are on Friday, this is the time when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, Nasa Adam, let's make a man. And when we're saying Nasa Adam, we're talking about an Adam that has a Shleimus Hadas, that has the real Das, that has Moichen de Gadlus, that is alive, that is fully functioning. And that didn't work out originally. That didn't work out by Adam Rishon because his das, his consciousness, his way of seeing himself was not accurate. It was not real. It wasn't the way that he really is. If Adam Rishon would have understood his greatness, then he never would have fallen to the level that he fell. And the reason Klal Yisrael were in Mitzrayim as Avodim, that they had to suffer all that suffering, is because when Adam Rishon conceived them in his mind, he was an Eved. He was in a world that he didn't understand. He was in a world where he was an outcast from Gan Eden. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't like him. Right? Like it says, he was hiding from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is obviously impossible, but that's a certain feeling that a person has. It's not a rational feeling. It's a reality that he's been placed in where he feels, his experience is, that he is not part of the system. He doesn't belong here. And that was the experience of Adam Rishon all those 130 years, when he created all these different neshamas that eventually became the Dor HaMabul, the Dor HaFloga, and afterwards the Dor of Yetzer Mitzrayim. It's all the same people, the same neshamas, trying to find a more proper manifestation. But because the beginning was so off, because the beginning was so distant from what the reality really is, so there are many different levels of imagination that a person needs to climb out of in order to attain his goal, in order to realize who he really is. And all these different levels of imagination were there b'koyach at the very first time the neshamas of Klal Yisrael came into this world, which was directly from Adam Rishon. So now he's talking about the das. He says the das is the machriya ben chochmah bina, kemo dayin shlishi. Ki yesh dayin yamin, v'dayin small, v'dayin shlishi ya machriya. So whenever you have a decision, there's 2 sides and there's a machriya. Whenever you have a thought, there's 2 sides and there's a machriya, because that's the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is that when something comes into its awareness, then it considers both sides. It considers yes and no. It happens at the same time. So any thought of a yes includes in it a thought of the opposite already. And then there's a dain, there's a machriya that says that between the two, this is the option, this is what I'm choosing. And that dain is called the das. So the chochmah is all the information of reality, everything that's real, everything that's true. And the bin is the person's understanding of it. And between the understanding of the person and the actual reality, there's a gap. And the das is the one that's machriya in that gap and decides how to manifest based on what you understand and what you don't understand. And in that das, that hachra wasn't happening the way that it should happen. And when the achra doesn't happen the way that it should happen, the actions are not the way that they need to be. Because the das is the one that causes the action. So the pegam and the das eating from eitz hadas tov v'ra, means that there's now potential for evil to manifest. If there's a potential within man for evil to manifest, then man is not in his own world anymore. He's already in a world where something might go wrong. And once that might go wrong comes into the picture, then the mind is always going to consider that on every thought, on every decision. And that's where the das goes completely wrong, because the reality is that that's not true. So the eitz hadas tov v'ra is a perception, right? She saw the tree, she saw that it was v'nechma da'etz lahaskil, right? She wanted to understand good and evil. She wanted to be able to know the difference. She wanted to be able to tell how actions are going to manifest and what they're going to cause. But at the same time, when they bought into that premise, they bought into a lie. Because the eventual result of everything that happens is pure good. That's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu set up the world. So when you want to look at it from the eye of good and evil, meaning you want to see the temporary effect it's going to have, so now suddenly you don't see the end result. You don't see the full picture. So the Ishbitzer says that La'osid, the pasuk where the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mitzaveh to Adam Rishon that he shouldn't eat from the tree will be read differently. The soif pasuk is going to move back. So right now we read it, Mikol eitz hagan ochel toichel, im eitz hadas tov v'ra l'soichel mimenu. But then we're going to read it, Mikol eitz hagan ochel toichel, im eitz hadas tov, soif pasuk. And then it's going to say, v'ra l'soichel mimenu. Don't eat the evil. Eat only the good from the eitz hadas. Why? Because we've already eaten from the eitz hadas. So now we can know good and we can know evil. Our job is to know only good. Our job is to eat only good. Our job is to identify good, to interpret good, to realize good, to carry good, to bring good, to hand out good, to take in good. Everything that's good, you should have a hand in. If it's evil, don't touch it. Because as soon as you touch it, you become a carrier of evil. And then it will manifest somehow. It will manifest in the corners of your speech. It will manifest in the corners of your mind. And that's enough to create a separation between the creator and the creation. To create a separation where a person feels like he doesn't want to be here. He doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to be involved in this experience. And that could only happen because he's interpreted something the wrong way. If he would see it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's eyes, then he would be nisratze from it, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is nisratze. So the dayan, that's the most important dayan, is the das. He's the one that makes the actual decision. He is the one that actually brings it out b'poel. V'kibaltim adon yov zikaini shetlas avuan hem gimel dayunim shem tlas moichin yemun esmal machria. So the Ovis Oilam, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they are the three dayanim. So in each one of us, we have in our DNA, we have Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are still functioning within each one of us and trying to make us better people. And Avraham is always the tzad chesed, Yitzchak is the tzad gvura, and Yaakov is the machriya. Yaakov is the tiferes midas or emes, which is machriya. And the Avos work their entire life that they should be able to arrive at that destination of representing that midah so deeply, so that in the DNA of their children and grandchildren, that midah will be emphasized. That midah will be stronger than it is for somebody else who doesn't have that Yerusha. And that's the Yerusha we got from our forefathers. That's the Yerusha we have in our DNA. Besides that, there's the Me'oirosa, right? The Torah is Me'oirosa, is a kala. A kala you don't have in your DNA. A kala is something you have to marry if you want to have a relationship with her. And the same thing the Torah. What Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov gave us is in our DNA. Nobody can touch it. But what the Torah gives us, that's a kala. If you're going to go and get to know her and marry her, then good for you. But if not, it's not in your DNA. It's not the same way as the midas that Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov gave us. So there's a Zohar that says that the midas adin and the midas arachamim, all midas are interpreting life. That's their goal. And at the end of the day, a person has to be realistic. He has to be practical. He has to be able to function. So therefore, he has to consider all the facts that are in front of him. He shouldn't hide from facts. He shouldn't hide from reality. Even when reality is tough, even if he sees midas gvura, he shouldn't deny it. He shouldn't say, oh, that's not happening. He should be able to interpret it. He should be able to work with the facts, because interpretations are not facts. And in the world of interpretation, we have free reign. We can go very, very deep. And the deeper you go, the more you will see that everything is good. The more shallow you look, the more things will appear to be evil. Why? Because we live between evil and shallow people. And they're not evil because they want to be evil. They're evil because they're ignorant of the nature of man. They don't offend you because they want to offend you. They offend you because they don't know how to do it any other way. So we interact with people all the time, and even we interact with ourselves, and we offend ourselves. Why do we offend ourselves? Not because we want to, because we don't know any other way. So we have to know how to deal with gvura, how to deal with different areas that are difficult in life, different areas that are not causing us necessarily to feel comfortable. So how do we do that? So the Zohar says like this. The Zohar says that the difference between the heichel aschus, the heichel where you want to be, and the heichel of the samach mem, the heichel of the satan, is not on the conclusion. It's on the hava mina. What do I mean by that? So in the heichel aschus, when information comes in, the hava mina is that it's good and everything is fine. That's the hava mina. Then, if there is an argument about that, then even the heichel aschus, right? Even the Bezdin, even the Sanhedrin will listen to every argument, and they will decide afterwards. Or maybe it is good, maybe it isn't good, and that's fine. The samach mem, he runs the other way. His hava mina is always that something is wrong, something is bad, something is not the way that it should be. That's the hava mina. The maskana is, if you start arguing and say, no, but it's not so bad, and it's not here, it's not there, even the samach mem will agree with you. Even the samach mem can say, you're right, things are okay. Why is that such a big deal? Because 99.9% of the time you don't question your hava mina. So if your hava mina is good, most of the time, most of the settings in your brain are going to be good. Who has the time to question every single hava mina they have in their mind? There's so many of them, piles upon piles, most of it done unconsciously. So when your hava mina is good, your whole unconscious is becoming your friend. Everything, every thought you have, everything that you're trying to interpret in life, everything that you see is good. First, it's good. Occasionally, you'll have areas where you need to ponder more, where you need to dig deeply and see why it's good and how it's good. But for the most part, life will feel like it's a pleasurable experience to you. Things are good. Masha'enken, when somebody is judged by the Satan, then his hava mina is always evil. His hava mina is things are wrong. His hava mina is everybody hates me. His hava mina, he definitely wanted to offend me. His hava mina is always on the wrong side of the aisle. So then 99.9% of the time, that's all he's going to stay with. On the few times where he argues, he's probably going to end up on the evil side also. You know why? Because he has 99.9% rayas that things are evil. Suddenly those hava minas are going to become proof. Suddenly he has a whole story already to justify. And you see this, and you see yesterday, and the day before, and he said this, and he meant that, and then he smirked, and then he walked away. Everything becomes part of the cheshbon. Why? Because the hava mina slipped through without even going through any bezdin. Nobody even spoke about them. They're just unconsciously there. So therefore, the ikar havdil between where you're located is, what is your anocha rishoina? How do you see life? Where are you coming from? Do you realize the achdus? Do you realize that all these forces, all these koiches, there are millions and trillions of different things going on in my body right now. They're all working together in order to do what? To let me say what I want to say. That's the achdus. That's how life was created. And that doesn't just happen in my body. That happens in the entire universe. That happens on the entire globe. Everything is working together to make life work. There's only one area that is a raw, painful, sour area. And what area is that? That's the human das. The one that Adam Rishon ruined. It's the source of all evil. The source of all disease, of all difficulty, of all fighting, of wars, of lack of shalom bayis within the person and outside. Lack of communities getting along, lack of people feeling motivated and happy to live. All that because of the virus running in our das. that the Das, when Adam Rishon came to become conscious, he finally recognized life, he saw life, he didn't see it from the right perspective, he didn't recognize it from the right place. And that's the koyach of these dayonim, that when they're machriya, they're creating reality, they're creating your experience. ונמצא כיוון שהפגם הוא בדס, ממילא התיקון צריך להיות גם כן על ידי דס. לקח מוישה, שבחינס דס של הדור ההוא, וכל הדור הוא ידבו כמילוב, לקח הוא ימה לא יסע ממצרים. So just as the pagam happens in das, the refuah happens in das, the tikkun happens in das. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu, who is the beginner's das, which means that Moshe Rabbeinu was the most conscious human being that lived after Adam Rishon until this very day. So he was so conscious that he undid a lot of the mistakes that Adam Rishon didn't properly understand. Moshe Rabbeinu understood them properly. And he explained them to Klal Yisrael from that direction. But he couldn't convince them enough so that they can all enter that domain, so they can all enter into that reality. And that's why by Matan Torah was Paruch Nishmasam, and then later on they needed to receive a Licha Shnius, which has a whole different character to it. And that was sort of to fix the low level that they were in, that they're in such deep demyonis. Like the Tzaddik says that the Memtes Sharatim of the Mitzrayim is Memtes Shurim of demyonis that a person could get into in order to forget who he really is. And then there's the Memtes Shar Kedusha, the Nun Shar Kedusha, which is each one takes you out of a Shar and Dimyon and connects you with a Shar and Chochmah, which explains to you this, that you understood wrongly and you thought it was an obstacle and a problem. Here's really how it works. It's here to help you. That's how you come out from the Dimyon and into the Metzias. You come out of Mitzrayim, where you're an Eved, and into reality, where you're a Ben. You come out of the darkness, the Choshech, and you see Oir. Oir, light, means that your mind, your koyach hamedaber, your nefesh hamedaberes, which is the most important part of you. It's what you have better than an animal, which you can develop to become better than an animal. Because according to the Torah, we're all animals. We're all two-legged animals. We don't qualify to be called humans. We have potential for human, right? It's like a pregnancy where a woman is pregnant, but the Ibur is not yet born. It's not a human being. It didn't yet come out of the womb in order to have its own existence. So the same thing, Klal Yisrael and Mitzrayim are called Ibur b'mei imoy. It's like an Ibur in the womb, meaning they don't have their own identity. They don't have their own life. They're just from the Chochmas Mitzrayim. They live there. They get to have existence, but not consciousness. And when Klal Yisrael came to Har Sinai and they received the Torah, so then it says, Ani amarti alekim atem evnei elin kilchem, that you can be people, that you can be alive, that you won't be animals, that you won't be just a species that speaks, but you'll be a species that understands talk, that the nefesh hamedaberes is so awake and alive that it feels everything that's said to it, it understands how it's affecting that nefesh. It understands how it's affecting you in a very deep way. Just like a person is alive in his body, and if you touch him right away, he knows that you're touching him, he's right away aware of it. If somebody doesn't have that function in his body, we would say that his body is not fully alive, doesn't have awareness. The same thing, the nefesh hamedaberes. When you're talking to the nefesh hamedaberes, you should be able to identify the response that you're having. And if you can't identify the response, it's because your nefesh hamedaberes is unconscious. And everything that's being said has a delayed response, and sometimes it has and sometimes it doesn't, but you don't fully connect to that response. You don't fully feel what that's doing to your nefesh. So the same way in a body, when a person's not sensitive, there's a disease that causes people not to feel pain. And they say it's a very dangerous disease, because at the end, these people, they get all kinds of wounds and all kinds of, they knock into different things, and they don't feel anything. So they constantly need to check their body to make sure if they got hurt. They could be bleeding, they could be real damage, but they don't feel anything. So the same thing in nefesh hamedaberes. When a nefesh hamedaberes is unconscious, somebody might be stabbing you over and over and over again, and you don't feel nothing. Because the person is not conscious. The person is supposed to feel. the person is supposed to be alive, is not there. And that's what Shlomo HaMelech says, Amoves v'chaim b'yad haloshen. Life and death are in the hand of the tongue. What are we really talking about? We're talking about the Nefesh HaMedaberes. The life and the death of the Nefesh HaMedaberes are in the tongue. Because that's what she eats, and that's what she understands, and that's what gives her life. So if he doesn't have the right words, if he's not being fed the right information, the Nefesh HaMedaberes can't live. Can't put together an image that makes enough sense for it that it wants to be conscious. So what does it do? It falls asleep. How does it fall asleep? By distracting itself. So we can be distracted by a million different things. The Sefer Bris Menucha says that at the time of the Dor HaFloga, when the 70 nations were created, they created 70 different types of kishuv. And from this kishuv, we still suffer until this very day. And what are these types of kishuv? These types of kishuvs are different procedures, different actions that we're going to take in order to release life from the Mekor HaChaim. What does that mean? So our body is wired in a way that we can set up goals that we can attain, and when we attain those goals, we get a pleasure response from within our body. So I say, I want to earn an X amount, or I want to have whatever, own something or do something, and then when I achieve it, it releases a response in the body. It releases certain chemicals in the brain. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu set that up in a specific way so that people will be motivated to do chesed, to interact with each other, to create a world as HaKadosh Baruch Hu envisioned it. And all the different areas of the brain are already set up so that they can handle this type of function, so that when this takes place, everything falls into place. Everybody can have what they need. And then a person's only goal is to accumulate chokhmah. Why? Because chokhmah brings him closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so he can feel the ahava. And this is why Shlomo HaMelech wrote Shir HaShirim, legabe being masik the chokhmah. And the whole game of being masik the chokhmah is a game of love. Because the more you understand, the more you realize the kindness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the more you naturally love him. That releases those chemicals into your mind that you need in order to be able to function, in order to receive chaim. Like Chazal say, the person's learning Torah, Klal Yisrael in the Midbar, they were eating lechem shemalach ha'ashuris oichlim. Because the malach ha'ashuris, they eat sichlius. They eat brain waves, right? You think and they do. So the same thing, when a person learns to have a geschmack in understanding who he is and understanding who created him, and he gains security, he gains peace by recognizing what's really going on. So then this is set up in a way where it gives him chayim. That's why the Torah is called chayim. That's why it says imcha mekor chayim ba'orcha nira or, that through the light of the Torah a person can recognize his own life. He can recognize that he's alive. Until then he doesn't even know that he's alive. So these 70 nations, they created 70 types of kishuv of how we're going to release those chemicals in your brain without the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whether it's going to be the economy, your career, or it's going to be fashion, or it's going to be building all kinds of different things, different toys that adults like to play with, or it's going to be dominating other people, covered and art, and all different things that a person could gain chayim, he could gain life, he could feel alive from, but this is not the Ratzon HaBoreh, this is not the Kavanah Tchila. And when Avram Avinu saw that these people are setting up these cultures, they're setting up these ways of life that are opposite the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to live, and therefore it's going to cause suffering to the neshama, it's going to cause suffering to the part of you that wants to understand life, to the part of you that wants to know what's happening and why it's happening. So therefore Avram Avinu left, and he wrote the Sefer Yetzirah, and he made his own nation. And that's in order to put away for us, while the world is covered in kishuv, the ad kedei kach that today you can't find almost true wisdom that's not involved with kishuv in order to get life, in order to get understanding, in order to gain pnimius. So now we have the Sefer from Avram Avinu that takes us back to a time when all this kishuv was being created after the Dor HaMabul. Before the Dor HaMabul, it was a whole different way of how they were going about it. But after Dor HaMabul, when they became more civilized, they had to create systems for the goyim in order to keep the minds occupied. So they don't just eat each other and fight with each other. And this slowly evolved into the different cultures we have today. But at the essence of it, these are all cultures built on not understanding life. These are all cultures built without knowing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created life so that every force of life, everything that has existence has its place and has its purpose, and it's trying to help humanity. Ad kedei kach that David HaMelech, when he considered these things, he only had two things that he couldn't understand. He's doing pretty well. He understood everything. He didn't understand Shigoin, and he didn't understand Yitushim. He didn't understand why people are crazy. Why should there be such a function in the brain where it's just giving out stuff that makes no sense? Shouldn't every brain have some kind of a system to it where what it says has chokhmah to it? And then the Yitushim, which I don't know why that's different than all the other insects, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed him even on those two that he specifically had to use them. But in general, you don't need to use anything personally in life in order to understand how important it is. Everything coexists in order to create a certain balance. And we all help that balance. And maybe we don't realize how much we are part of that balance physically because we don't understand nature, we don't understand the body, we don't understand how things function. But if you look spiritually, if you look at your neshama, your nefesh hamidaberes, how important is your nefesh hamidaberes for the stability and the function of all the people around you? That's also part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plan. He didn't just worry that there should be Yitushim. He also worried that you should be there in the middle of everything that you're involved in, because your Nefesh HaMedaberes is bringing balance into those places, or at least it's supposed to, if you're doing it right. So the words that are coming out of your mouth, to your wife, to your children, to your friends, to your co-workers, all this is part of their experience, it's part of their life. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu created you for them in that sense, and He created them for you. And all that is part of the plan of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is Magid Mereshis Achres, that from the first moment that He created what He created, He already knew everything that's going to take place as a result of what He is creating, as a result of what He is releasing over here. So that door was all shaykh to Moshe Rabbeinu. They were all neshamas from the das of Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe Rabbeinu had the koyach through pointing them to the truth, through teaching them truth. He had the koyach to take out all the netzoitzes that were in Mitzrayim, so that Klal Yisrael can have a tikkun. Well, there this is Rambam she'amikve metar beruchnis kemoshi marchitz kemenake begashmis mikol tid v'lichluch kemei mikve shiremez lemei chesed v'adas mizeh nimshach elav lesakem asher pogam bedas. So it says, the Rambam says that the mikveh, just like Bekashmis, you're doing a avoida to be menake your body, and you feel afterwards clean. Beruchnis, you should be mechaven that everything that happened to you till now that is not good, you release that, and you don't want any part of it, and you're releasing all the klippas and all the different things that have influence on your mind, that have influence on your nefesh. So it says that the mea mikveh is a remes to the mea chesed of the endas. So when a person toivels in chesed, meaning he realizes HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chesed, he realizes HaKadosh Baruch Hu's rav chesed, like it says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'chanoisis asher ochoin, v'richamtis asher arachem. So the Svarim say, v'chanoisis asher ochoin means that I will be graceful to those who I will make graceful. V'richamtis asher arachem, I will have mercy to those who I created merciful. Because everything is midah keneged midah. So you want to know a person, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is merachem on him, see if He created him as a Rachman. If He created him as a Rachman, then he goes under the pasuk of V'chamtis asher arachem. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is merachem from inside that person. And if He's merachem from inside that person, of course He's merachem from outside that person. And that's why tzaddikim are mahapach midas sadinim midas rachmim. That's their midah. So the mea mikveh is a remes that a person goes into the mea chesed, that he recognizes HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chesed, and he's misaken his das. He doesn't feel like a Eved, like Adam Rishon felt when he was kicked out of Gan Eden, and he didn't know about the mitzvah of tshuva, and he didn't have Torah, so he couldn't get up and he couldn't go back to where he was supposed to. He felt lost. But now, the tikkun is that he realizes that these mea mikveh are mea chesed v'adas, and therefore they're cleansing him. They're purifying him. They're making him a different person. Like Rav Akiva says, Ma mikveh metaris apmayim, af HaKadosh Baruch Hu metaris Yisrael. What does that mean? It means just like when you physically submerge in the waters of the mikveh, your body comes out clean. The same way, when you spiritually submerge in the concept of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the concept of the Shem Havaya, it's metar your spirit. It's metar Klal Yisrael. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to do that. It's only when we keep him out of our hearts that we don't get cleansing, that we don't get clean, and we keep on basking in complication. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be yosher, to be simple. Just leave any negativity behind and start being good, being kind, being wonderful from that moment forward. And then that kindness, that chesed, that das will change a person's nature, will change his perception, and will cause him to have a different relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'zeu tischadesh kanesher niroichi, that you have to be mechadesh kanesher, haine sheyisaken kol hanitzoitzen shelo kanesher shu mashlich knofav vayishenim levish chadoshim umsikonim. The nesher has a nature, apparently, that it leaves off some of its feathers and it keeps growing new ones. So tischadesh kanesher niroichi, you grew bad feathers, you had bad interactions with people, you had bad perceptions about life, about yourself, your relationship with Hashem got dirty for whatever reason in your mind. Well, in Hashem's mind, it didn't get dirty. Hashem is still there waiting. From his side, everything is still clean. Just clean your side of the window and you'll see right through. And that means this Chadesh Kanesha Niraichi, throw off all those different noitzes that you don't need and grow new ones. Make yourself new habits, make yourself new ways of seeing and new ways of understanding life. And ze oise tzedokos Hashem im mishputim l'chol hashikim. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu does tzedokos, and he does mishpat to all those who are robbed. Who gets robbed? We all got robbed. What did they rob from us? They took away our potential. Because when we were born, they didn't tell us. And we still don't know. So we got robbed. There's so much that we have inside of us that we don't know how to gain access to. They took it away from us. And the Gullus takes that away from us. Because each one of us, if we were living in the time of Shlomo HaMelech, when Chochmah was spilling on the streets, we would look very, very differently. We would experience very differently. Life would be different. Our interactions with other people would be different. Interactions with Hashem and with ourselves. So all that was taken from us. How was it taken from us? Because we're in Gullus. We don't have Chochmah. We don't understand. We live like slaves. We do what we have to do so we can do, and then we continue doing. But that's not really the goal. The goal is the understanding. The goal is the chokhmah. The goal is the tshuva. And the tshuva is a return to a place of purity, to return to a place where you were the moment before you left your mother's womb. Pure. You couldn't have done anything wrong even if you wanted to. And that's where a yid belongs. That's where we have to go back to. How do we go back to there? By forgetting everything we've learned since and starting over. Looking at things with fresh eyes, realizing that it can't be the way that we think it is, because then it wouldn't be good. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is pure good. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is pure good, meaning everything that we experience, everything that we have, all the koiches He gave us, all the abilities, are there for a purpose. And if we put the puzzle together right, it will fit. It will fit, because the one who made this puzzle is a master puzzle maker. He's been making puzzles for thousands of years. He knows how it's done. We have to have the confidence to actually go look at this puzzle and try to put it together and realize that the Torah is not in the books, the Torah is in life, the Torah is in reality. If what the books are saying doesn't match reality, then that's not Torah. Torah is only where the two combine. Reality and the words. When reality and the words come together, that's Torah. Because Torah means teaching, to teach somebody how to live. And who are we teaching? We're teaching a human being that has Ramach Evorim and Shesod Gidim. So the Torah comes to address that human being. With all his Ramach Evorim and all his Shesod Gidim, the Torah is here to address that and to talk to him and to tell him how to get the best results out of his potential, out of what he's received as a gift from Kaviyachal. Heinish, Sheisakin Kol HaNitzoitzin, Heine Kedayin Amachriya Kach Hadas Shemachriya Mesaken L'chol Netzoitz Hashikim V'Yimka Klipis. So it's like a dayan. Your das needs to become the dayan that's worrying now for the good of the people. We know that when there was a Egla Rifa, when a person was found around the city dead, so the Zikneir had to go out and say Yedeni L'Shavcha Sadam Hazeh. So the Tzaddik asks, why the Zikneir? Is it usually the Zikneir who kill people? Like why are you taking them? Go take the lowest of the low, and they should come say, Yedeinu l'shavchas Adam hazeh. He says, no, because the Ziknei Eida, they're the ones who decide what people are going to think. And once you tell them what to think, if they kill, then it's your problem. You know why? Because you didn't set him up right. You didn't tell him how to think in a way that he won't kill. If you would have taught him right, if you would have told him what it means a human being, if he would have understood the Kedusha of a Yiddish neshama, he couldn't have killed. So the Ziknei Eida have to go and say, Yedeinu l'shavchas Adam, we didn't mean it. Even if we led him astray, we didn't mean it. Like the Mishnah says, Chachom v'zhari v'derechem, shem t'chai v'choy v'azgolos. Why would Chachomim go into Golos? Because when a Chacham is masbid the Torah in a way of a Eved and a Odin, when there is bekoichoi, when he could have learned better and he could have been masbir as a father and a son, so now he's chayiv choy v'azgolos. Now the Chacham has to go in Golos. Why? Because you put your Talmud in Golos. Why? Why are you teaching him like a Eved? HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us access to better than that. So when you have the koyach to teach the Torah as father teaches to a son, you have to teach that way. If not, the Chacham can be mechayiv choy v'azgolos, because the Talmidim feel like they're in Golos in this world. They're in Golos in their own skin. They're Golos in their own nefesh, in their own minds. So that's the tafkid of the dayan. And the dayan, which is the das over here, he's the one that needs to make sure that everything is the way that it needs to be, that things are taken care of, that he taps into the midas hachesed as frequently as possible in order to balance out all the gevuras in this world. So it says, the Moshe Rabbeinu, he was the b'chinas hadas shel hadarahu, v'chein b'chol dor, roshi hador shem b'chinas hadas, hem yuchlu lesaken et tzoytze shekol hador advukim alehem. So the Roshi Hador, that they have the Bechinas Hadas, they're the Das of the nation, they're the ones that are doing the thinking, they're the ones that are conscious and telling the rest of the body how to act. So they are the ones who have the job to make sure to be Mesaken and Etzoitzes, to understand the situation of the generation, to understand what are the struggles that we're dealing with, and how do you build koiches of Kedusha to balance out those struggles, to help the people. V'zeh livnei Yisrael aliloisav, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu teaches to the Einei Oede, like it says, Kim gila soidav kileyasa Hashem lekim dovar Kim gila soidav avodav anavim, that everything he does is megale to the Roshei Oede first, and they get to decide according to their Torah how things are going to play out. V'zeh ela mishpatim asher tosim lefneim, hainu tlas dayonin shem bo'elam hazeh, v'benefesh shem nikron tlas moichin shem Chabad, v'bishona im sholosh regolim, so that the nefesh has the three moichin, right? We also spoke about in the past about the moyach, the lev, and the koved, which are all part of the Beis Din, part of the ones that get to decide how the person is going to lead his life and what he's going to do. And these three, this Chabad, which is represented by the Shalosh Regolim, they get manifestation through the Das, because the Das is the Machriya. And then, if you learn how to do this process properly, if you learn how to really be able to be Mashpiat the Klal Yisrael, become a tziner for kindness, a tziner for Chochmah, a tziner for understanding, a tziner that allows people to feel at home in this universe, in this planet, where Kadosh Baruch Hu designated for them, that this should be their home. So if you can help people feel at home here, then that will help to be mesaken all the netzoitzes that we still have to be mesaken, and through that we'll be zoichet to the Gula Shlem of Meir B'Yemei Yomim.